Welcome back to the Taranis Q X7 series of videos. In the last video I showed you how to disassemble everything. Today we will be hydro dipping it, and the next video is how to reassemble. I am voicing over right now because the microphone on my camera sucks like a 102mm turbo, and I also want to add that I am no professional at hydro dipping. What I would actually recommend doing is watching the disassembly video and the reassembly video, but for the hydro dipping itself, just go to a professional on YouTube. I mean, there are guys that do this for a living. I'm an electrical engineer, not an artist. I'm only making this video because it's been requested so much, so here it is. After we get this thing hydro dipped and put back together, we can continue with the rest of the video series, so look in the description below, I'll leave a link to it. The very first thing is to remove all the stickers that you don't want hydro dip going over. I removed a clear decal, whatever you want to call it, on the top front, on the front plate. There is also a sticker on the back side. After you remove the stickers, there's going to be a sticky residue. To remove that residue, I used flux cleaner, but you can also use rubbing alcohol or even brake cleaner, anything like that. Next step is to wash everything that you'll be hydro dipping. The reason for this is because oil from your hands gets on the plastic, and if you paint over that, the paint will fisheye or orange peel. You may not think that there's any oil from your hands or from anything else on the plastic, but I promise you it's there. You can't see it on a microscopic level. After that, make sure everything is completely dry, because if there are any tiny water droplets on the plastic and you paint over that, then once the water dries, the paint is still going to be bubbled, and it basically makes a hollow spot, which is going to crumble and fall away later on once you touch it. I then took everything outside to paint, but I don't actually use paint, I use primer. The reason I use primer is because it dries faster than paint, and it also leaves a nice texture that the hydro dip can stick to. Not only that, but I also make sure I use white primer, because you don't want any colors underneath your hydro dip film, because if you use black, then it's just going to look black because the hydro dip film is actually transparent. And if you use any other color, say for example I used red underneath my blue hydro dip, then it would have turned out purple. Primer isn't as glossy as paint, but that doesn't determine the glossiness once you're done. That comes down to the clear coat, so you don't have to worry about that. Turn the can upside down, shake it like a salt shaker. You might even have to use two hands and double fist it just to make sure. Whenever you spray it, don't get too close, because if you do get too close, then the paint will orange peel, and which is basically how it's going to become too runny. I keep my distance and do many light coats. I'll do one light coat, go to a different part, do another light coat on that separate part, then go to a different part, and repeat the process 2 to 3 times. You may have to use more coats if whatever you're hydro dipping is other than white. Thankfully this is white. That's also why I bought the white Turn G Evolution when I did that one. My Fat Shark goggles are white, but if you are doing something that's a different color, you have to spray it until it turns white. After that, I get my container of water ready. I would recommend using a really big container and doing this outside. I don't, because the woman that lives above me is a super prick. She calls the cops on me anytime she sees anything drone related, because she thinks I'm spying on her 56-year-old self or her 16-year-old daughter, even though they leave the blinds closed permanently, so I can imagine what kind of dungeon it looks like up there. You want to make sure that you are using warm water. I couldn't tell you exactly what temperature, but I don't know if you guys can afford this super special tool that I use, but it works great for judging temperatures. Because I do this part first, I make the water a lot hotter than what it should be, because the next step is going to your film and placing the parts on top of it and cutting it out to size. And by the time I get done with that, the water's cooled off to my desired temperature. But you can do it the other way around. You can cut the film first and then pour your water. It's up to you. I use painter's tape around the parts that I'll be hydro dipping. I highly recommend doing this, because this is going to keep your film from curling up once you put it into the water. And once I put the tape down, I cut it right down the middle, and not only does this help keep the film from curling up, but it's also, by cutting it down the middle, this saves time when I do the next cut. Before you put the film in the water, you want to get some activator for the film. I'm not promoting this activator. I mean, it works for me, but I haven't tried a bunch of different activators. Like I said, I'm no professional. This stuff works for me. And just like your paint, you want to turn it upside down and shake it out really good. You have to make sure you put the film in the water a certain way. Just lick both of your fingers, stick them to both sides of the film, wait a couple seconds, and then pull your fingers away. And whichever finger sticks to the film, that sticky side is going to go face down, which is going to be touching the water. After you put the film in the water, you want to wait about 30 seconds. It's going to start off smooth and then get really wrinkly and then smooth itself back out again. Once it's smooth again, then you can spray the activator. Spraying the activator and dipping it in a certain amount of time is the hardest part of this entire process because there's so many things that you can screw up. When you spray the activator, you want to be holding it way above the film because the pressure of the spray coming out can tear holes through the film, and you also have to use a certain amount. I just kind of go over it really quick. I can't exactly tell you how much I use, but just practice. That's the best advice I can give you. Practice on something else before you actually dip something that you really care about. After you spray the activator, I wait. It depends on how much you use. How much I use, I usually wait about 10 seconds before I dip it. So it's going to be almost immediately. You can look at the film. The film is going to get really thin, and actually it's not going to look like film anymore. It's going to look like it's part of the water, very liquidy, and that's when it's time to dip. So dip your parts in the film. You want to do this at an angle to make sure that, I don't know, just do it at an angle. It helps out. You also kind of want to slide your hands towards the film that you have not used yet to help it go on instead of making it try to pull itself to whatever you are dipping. And once you have the part dipped, you want to push it down into the water because pushing it down really hard is going to help it stick to whatever you are dipping. I can't push that far because I am so limited on space. That's just one more reason why I recommend using a large container outdoors. Then swirl your hands around in the water to get rid of all the extra film, and then pull it out. Hopefully you don't snag too much of the remaining film. Stare at it for a few seconds in awe, and then move over to the sink. Just to be disappointed. Well, hopefully you won't be disappointed. So once again, use warm water, and you want to put this as close to the nozzle of the sink as possible because you don't want the water hitting it too hard because that could actually knock the film off. You're going to leave this underneath the running water for a very long time. I would estimate probably 5 straight minutes. Every now and then, touch the film, and whenever you start, it's going to feel just like a fish, very slimy. And leave it under the running water until all of the sliminess has gone away. And as you can probably tell from my part, I didn't do that great of a job. What can cause these white spots is going to be either not enough activator or too much activator, or you didn't wait long enough, or you waited too long. But usually it means you didn't wait long enough. If you waited too long, then your film is going to be very thin and spread out, and a lot of white is going to show in like large areas instead of the little white spots. Now repeat the process for the rest of the parts you'll be dipping. So like I said, I either did not use enough activator or I didn't wait long enough, but I got a lot of these white spots. You can fix this. I use a Sharpie marker, a very fine tip Sharpie marker. Do not use an ink pen. Well, all of this is assuming you are using a film that's very dark natured. If you're using a light colored film, then it'd probably be better just to leave it alone. Don't add more black to it. But anyway, don't use the ink pen because once you spray the clear coat, the chemicals in the clear coat will actually make your pen ink disappear. After spending over a solid hour touching up all the little white specks, it's now time to clear coat, so take all of your parts back outside. Spraying the clear coat is self-explanatory. Just make sure you shake the can, don't get too close or you will get runs. And I do a bunch of light coats. I wasn't going for the glossy look. I just wanted the textured look because if it's really glossy, it slips in your hands a lot. But if you do want that glossy texture, then you can go a little bit thicker and spray a little bit closer to your parts. After that, leave it outside, let it dry all day long, because if you might touch the clear coat and think that it's dry, but if you give it any pressure at all, then you're going to leave fingerprints in the clear coat. So that's why I say just let it, just be patient, let it dry all day. And after that, you're pretty much done. So at this point, you can watch my next video on the reassembly if you do have a Taranis Q X7. If you're here to hydrodip anything else, then I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.